So this is the Ambassador, a big-ass revolver that can headshot enemies. Well, let's take a test drive. Well, it's decent. My name is Troy, and today we will talk about the Ambassador, a gun that was suggested during Weird Blast. Weird Blast is an annual charity event set up by Weird FTW, and during the charity event, people can donate to charity and roll a tombola, which has different charity goals / promises from different content creators. And my tombola was a review from a weapon that people from Weird Blast chose. And the weapon in question? The Ambassador. But yeah, let's talk about the Ambassador. Fancy name, by the way. We will talk about its stats, usability and feeling, sounds and design. We will also talk about how this weapon works in MVM. And normally I will also talk about the story and history, but I already did that during the Force of Nature video. I will put a link in the description and on top of YouTube if YouTube allows it. But yeah, let's look at the stats. These are some interesting stats, and as usual, we have a graph to show it. I will just say it already, I do not like the stats. I will go further in detail why later, but yeah, be prepared. But let's look at the stats again. So how to obtain this weapon is really easy. There's two ways to get the Ambassador. The first way is unlocking the Ambassador by getting 5 spy achievements. The second way is through crafting. And just like the Force of Nature, there's no specific crafting blueprint. There's only one blueprint that you can get the Ambassador out, but it's a random weapon blueprint. So you know what time it is. Let's look at the damage. The base damage is 34 damage, but the max non-crit damage the revolver can do is 51. And I know what you probably are thinking, but isn't the max damage not the base damage? Which I will say, kinda, but not really in Team Fortress 2. So there is a mechanic called Distant Modifier, which I already talked in detail in my Force of Nature review. I will just put a link again in the description. But to summarize it, it's that the base damage only applied to a specific distance, around 12 meters. If you go closer from that distance, you get a bonus damage multiplier. This modifier keeps going until its point blank range. And the same counts as how further you go, except its damage fall off. The only exception on this rule is crits. But this weapon has an interesting crit system, which I will talk about later. But I will say, the crit damage is 102 damage, which is similar to the other revolvers. Okay, with the damage being done, let's look at the fire rate. The fire rate is really slow, like slower than usual revolvers in this game. The time between shots is 0.6 seconds, so emptying a cylinder, it will take 3.6 seconds. And this is without the bloom effect. I will talk about the bloom effect later. And I know what you're probably thinking, why so much things about later? But trust me, it will all come together and you will be amazed about it. I'm totally not sounding like a conspiracy lunatic. But moving on, let's talk about the reload and its bullets. So the reload is actually really fast. You can reload your weapon in 1.2 seconds. And now with the bullets. So the Ambassador uses .50 cal rounds. Yes, you heard it right. .50 cal. .50 cal has a lot of different variants. Most people probably know about the one in a sniper rifle, which destroys people with one shot. But the Desert Eagle uses a 50 cal variant called 50 cal Action Express, AE for short. Looking at all the different 50 cal, I think it's closely to the 50 cal Action Express. But let's look at the cylinder. The cylinder can hold 6 rounds and you have 24 ammo in reserve. And finally, let's talk about the weapon's abilities. So if you notice, I haven't talked about the range, spread, and there's a reason for it. So this weapon can do headshot damage, and it has a pinpoint accuracy. Well, at least the first shot has. So this weapon has bloom, and it's the only weapon in Team Fortress 2 that has bloom. And what is bloom? Well, bloom is a mechanic that gives spread after every shot. This mechanic has been famously used in Halo Reach. And just in that game, the main reason it has bloom is balancing. So the ambassador has a spread of 1 before shooting, but it goes instantly towards 80 and slowly going back to 1. This is important because of the headshot damage. So during the time the weapon has bloom, you cannot do any headshots until the bloom is gone. This will take 1 second to fully reset and is one of the biggest downside of this weapon. So after taking a shot, 9 out of the 10 enemies will notice you and immediately run. Only 1 of the 10, and yes, I see these people, just ignore you and keep on going what they're normally doing, which is a perfect moment to take the second shot and destroy them. Except heavies and soldiers and other people, but I will talk about that later. And I will also say, for those people that stays or just ignore me, thank you. I really appreciate it because I really needed a second headshot on you. But those 9 of the 10 moments, they can be mixed. If it's a low health enemy, there's still a high chance you can destroy them. If it's a medium health enemy, like the medic and that kind of stuff, it will be a difficult fight. And if it's multiple people or an heavy or a soldier, just run away because you will not survive. Also, the headshot mechanic has distance fall off. It's crazy because this is also the only weapon that has crit fall off. So the crit damage is 3 times the damage of the normal weapon, except the minimum crit damage is 45 damage until a set range. After that range you cannot do any headshot damage anymore. Also, it's really crazy to know these numbers. I will also take a shout out again to the Team Fortress 2 wiki. I swear those guys are pros on working on stats. To be honest, I was thinking of changing the title of feeling and usability to my opinion, because this will be the longest I have probably be on this subject. But let's talk about the usability first, because that's the shortest. So this weapon really has a low usability. This weapon tries to be a high risk, high reward weapon, but this weapon only succeeds on the lower health classes. Classes like the heavy, soldier, take multiple headshots to kill. And this weapon definitely has a high skill ceiling with the bloom and headshot. So if you want to use this weapon, it's really picking your targets, just like a spy. But there's also one downside, one weapon class that makes this tactic totally useless. The knife weapons are just doing it better. Only in front of an enemy or an enemy running away, you can use the ambassador against it. But in the back, just use a knife. And the feeling? Well, you would think that giving a headshot gives you a dopamine rush, or it feels satisfied, but in reality, it isn't. It feels cheap, or just surprising. Like it feels like the weapon is busted, and not in a good sense. Like not busted as in it destroys everything, but busted is like, oh, it's working, but it has a lot of duct tape on it. Like every body shot is just like shooting with pellets, and the headshots, which half of the time is accidental, or just a quick response, is just cheap. So in my opinion, this weapon needs a rework. Actually another rework, because it had a rework, because before this, it was busted in a good sense. But it also felt cheap. So yeah, this weapon needs a rework, and not even a small one. So while writing the script, I was thinking about 2 possible reworks. So the first one might be less extreme. So first, remove the damage reduction and add 10% damage buff. And I know what you guys are thinking. And probably going to say what the fuck in the comments, but hear me out. The bloom and crit fall off stays the same, but add another debuff that the moment you shoot, you can't go invisible or disguise for 2 seconds. And this will reset after every shot. This makes this weapon more high risk, but also a really bigger reward, which this weapon really misses. It also kinda fits the weapon design because this revolver just cannot be concealed, compared to the other weapons of the spy. And yes, this is the less crazy rework. The second rework is removing this weapon from the spy and give it to the engineer as a secondary weapon. I will say add this without the damage debuff, but add a 10% weapon switch debuff, so that the engineer cannot switch the weapon instantly and make an easy headshot. You know, I said a lot of negative things about this weapon, but this weapon really shines in its sounds and design. This weapon sounds so punchy, and I love it. Like, the sounds really sounds like you're shooting a hand cannon, and knowing that you can do a headshot with these sounds is just an icing on the cake. Only the reload sounds are basic, and it sounds like every other revolver. And now let's take a closer look at the design of this weapon. And this weapon looks so detailed. I really love the engraving on it, which, fun fact, is Scout's mother. I am not kidding about that one. And why Scout's mother? We may never know. But even with the awesome engraving on the weapon, the other stuff looks really nice. The barrel is big, and the sides, which somewhat looks clunky, really fits this weapon. And the wooden hand grip really finished this weapon. So let's look at the animations now, which could be a bit better. The reload animation looks basic, and there's no rotating cylinder when shooting, which I recently heard was removed from the game. And the main reason at the time of the removal, it would help lower NPCs to run this game. And that's fine and all, but it's 2025 and I think a lot of people already have a GTX 1060 or higher. Or hell, I think it's even prehistoric with the 3060 and such. But let's look back to the design. So the Ambassador has multiple variants of it. So next to the default is the Vestify skin, which on first glance looks almost exactly the same, except in the Christmas light on the end. But if you take a closer look, you notice that the engraving is different. It's now a person with a mistletoe. I really love it, and it's kinda decent if you want to buy it from the market. Okay, maybe if you have money to waste. So the second and last skin for the Ambassador is the Australian skin, which is a really nice golden weapon skin that turns enemies into gold. And that's it for the weapon skin. It looks really good, but it looks almost the same as the default skin, except making enemies into gold. And if you really like this skin, good luck getting it. Okay, let's check the market, how much it cost. Jesus. You can also get this variant doing MVM. And talking about MVM, just don't. Okay, in all seriousness, this weapon is really bad in MVM. So let's start with the spy class and why it's not good at MVM. It's a decent disruption class and can do decent damage on a single target, but if there's waves of targets, then you're kinda screwed, and the Revolver doesn't help. So the Revolver doesn't have a damage upgrade. Most weapons in this game has a damage upgrade in MVM. The Revolver doesn't. It has a piercing upgrade, which you can shoot through multiple enemies, but the damage is kinda bad. And the Ambassador has it even worse. So the Ambassador has a fire rate upgrade, which sounds nice, but it doesn't reset the bloom, so you cannot do headshots faster. You just can do a headshot every 1 second. So yeah, most of the upgrades are useless, just don't use this weapon in MVM. The Ambassador is an interesting concept. A spy weapon that can make headshots and make things personal is a fun concept, but the execution and using this weapon, it shows that this weapon is overbalanced and really not a good fit for the spy. The spy has so much utility that this weapon is not needed, not even as a backup or support weapon, which other revolvers are. And saying that, I will give this weapon a 5 out of 10. This weapon has its charms, but it under-delivers and just doesn't feel honorable to use. So yeah, that was the Ambassador. I will say, it was really tedious to use it. And mastering the headshot mechanic was really difficult to do. So next time, we will use a weapon that probably needs less skill to properly use. Which weapon that is, we will see. See you guys next time.